Hello friends! Today I want to take you through the process of how I illustrate my sticker sheet designs. Here I'm just showing off some of my previous designs that are available in my online shop. So just to preface, I want to mention that I'll be showing the sketching and coloring process of a sticker sheet, not the actual production. There are tons of sticker and printing companies out there, so you just have to do your research and find out what works for you based on your budget and location. So before I begin any sketching, I have to decide on the theme for the sticker sheet. For this round, I decided I wanted to take inspiration from an original character that I've illustrated in the past of this girl gang boss who I think is equal parts cute and equal parts badass. In today's video, I will be using Clip Studio Paint, who also happens to be today's sponsor, so thank you to Clip Studio Paint for helping support this channel. So after deciding on the theme, I jump right into some rough sketching. They recently got some new brushes, so if you already have this program, be sure to update it so you can try out the new brushes. And for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you'll know that I actually am primarily a traditional media artist. However, I do like to use digital artwork from time to time for merchandise such as sticker sheets, since it's definitely much more flexible in being able to resize and rearrange items. So through the process here, you'll see that I actually use the lasso tool to select these different sketches, and I can rearrange the placement and change the size, and overall it's just much easier to kind of Tetris the different illustrations together rather than trying to do it traditionally. So for this design, I thought that it would be cute to have 3 different portraits of our girl gang boss with different expressions with a variety of different accessories. Then to accompany her, I also included some weapons and extra design elements that match up with the stickers and accessories on her face, as well as just make the sticker sheet overall a more fun and playful design. And it also just fills out any of the blank areas, because I'm personally a maximalist, especially when it comes to sticker designs. I want to be able to use up every part of the sheet as much as possible. And at this stage, I'm mainly using the rough pencil in a reddish color, and honestly, I just like using red because it reminds me of the red erasable pencil I normally would use when I'm sketching traditionally. Old habits definitely die hard. And a huge benefit to working digitally is that for these portraits, I was able to copy and paste her so that I didn't have to redraw every element all 3 times. I only had to focus on changing her features or accessories, which makes the process much more efficient. And yeah, something that I've been having a lot of fun with is drawing different expressions. So for the first portrait, I gave her kind of a smug, confident look, and then with this second one, she's gonna have like a sassy, pouty look, and then for the third one, she's gonna be blowing a bubble, she's chewing bubble gum, and it's gonna be a bit more playful. And I thought that was fun to just be able to explore the kind of different elements to this character, even though I have no intentions of creating a comic or anything with her. It's just a character design that I made up, and I've just been having fun with creating more and more iterations of her. And then once I'm satisfied with the sketch and arrangement of the items, I move to a new layer and begin the line art. For this, I mainly use the G pen for the stage, while occasionally using the real G pen if I wanted a more tapered stroke, because I actually have a really difficult time doing clean line art digitally, partly probably because I'm just not used to using this media, and also I think that it is really hard to get a fine mixture of consistent lines, but also having some variances where you want it to. So the G pen I find is less flexible, whereas the real G pen definitely is much more sensitive to the tablet. So you get those like really sharp wispy lines when you use less pressure on your tablet. So yeah, it's definitely a tricky thing to get used to, and I'm sure I would probably have an easier time if I was better practiced. But again, I'm not primarily a digital artist, so it was a little bit of a learning curve since it had been quite a while since I had done anything digitally. But overall, I'm really glad that I spent the time to power through this line art, because for this sticker sheet, and I think just for sticker sheets in general, I think that it's much more effective to go for simplicity generally for stickers, something that's just a little bit more bold and punchy, since the final size is usually on the smaller side. So you want it to be very legible and readable from a distance, since it is going to be smaller. If you're familiar with my usual work, I tend to have a more rendered art style where there's more shading involved and details. And while I definitely think that, of course, can still be used for stickers, and I generally reserve those kinds of art styles for larger stickers, I personally really enjoy more simple designs when it comes to smaller scale stickers and, like I said, sticker sheets. And like I was saying, I am not a very experienced digital artist anymore at this point, and so if you are in a similar boat to me and have a difficult time with clean line art, one of the tips that I have for you is that what I ended up doing most of the time was I used the eraser tool to clean up any wonky edges, because I really just had a hard time getting the right stroke in one go. And so I would do several smaller strokes, and then I would just use the eraser to clean it up if there was any kind of inconsistencies in the way that I was connecting the lines. I'm sure there's probably a better way of approaching this, but again, I'm not primarily a digital artist, so this was the tactic that I used. And if you also have troubles, maybe that will work for you. Here you can see that I'm able to make a straight line by holding the shift, I believe, while I'm doing the line art. So that was really, really handy for the bat there. And you can also see me do it here for the sword earrings as well. I try not to use too many perfect shapes, because I find that it can get a little bit jarring to see against all of the organic stuff. So I only used that straight edge feature on I think those two elements. Everything else I tried to freehand. Same with a lot of the spherical shapes. I tried to mostly freehand it, again, just because I think that it just looks more consistent with the rest of the artwork when everything else is like slightly imperfect. Then after I finish the line art, I move on to coloring. Like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to go for a more simple art style, but because it had been so long since I worked digitally, I wasn't quite sure which direction to go in. It can be challenging to translate your work into a style that you don't normally work in, but the great thing about working digitally is that you can experiment to your heart's content without feeling like you're quote unquote wasting any art materials. And what I love about Clip Studio Paint is that they have some really nice traditional media style brushes. And so initially I thought I was going to go for this slightly textured look for some of the color gradients. And I also wanted, the piece to feel very colorful and fun. So I experimented with using this pastel purple shadowing. And I also used this really light blue for some really bright highlights for some contrast. And ultimately, I knew I didn't want the line art to be black, so I also ended up clicking that alpha lock icon for the line art layer, and that way I'm able to paint the line art different colors. And I went back and forth between like some browns and purples before I settled on blue. And overall, I do think that this style is quite fun and it feels very dramatic. But in the end, I decided that it was still more rendering than I had initially wanted. So after I ultimately settled on the dark blue line art, which you'll see up ahead, I ended up starting over with my coloring approach. This time I decided I was going to keep it simple and graphic, so I ended up primarily using the G pen again to create some darker shadows, but also for the coloring as well. So instead of using any gradients or blending techniques, I decided to go for a more cell shading approach. And so I just did all solid flat colors, and then in, keeping in line with wanting it to feel bold and punchy, I used this coral color for almost all of the shading on all of the illustrations. I think that in doing this, it creates like a color harmony between all of the different elements. And overall, I just think it turned out really fun. I did all of the coral red shading on a separate layer, and so you'll see that I select a few different layer effects to see which would give me the result I like the most. And so I ended up settling for the multiply setting and adjusting it to 50% so that the shading would adapt in hue depending on what color it was overlapping. Then, of course, one of my favorite parts in any illustration process is adding in some bright white highlights to really make the character come to life. And for I think 2 of the portraits here, I ended up doing these little white hearts in her eyes instead of just like a little white circle highlight. And I think that was a fun extra touch that I think I picked up from maybe one of the manhwas I've been reading. And yeah, then from there, I pretty much just approach all of the rest of the elements in the same manner with the coral red shading, the bright white highlights with some additional dark blue line art for just some dramatic shadows or to add a little bit of texture to some areas. I did end up using a mid-tone blue to shade the few blue elements in this piece since the red was just a little bit too different in hue to work. But yeah, then when I'm happy with the illustration, I make sure that it's formatted according to the printing company specifications and I can send it off to production. Each printing/sticker company will have slightly different requirements, so be sure to read the instructions and or download the provided templates accordingly if they have them. In this case, the sticker sheet did need to be reformatted to CMYK. That's usually the case for most printing companies. And I did end up having to rearrange a few of the items because they were a little bit too close together for I think the sticker laser cut. I have not actually sent them off to production just yet. I'm low-key waiting for a sale to hopefully roll around. But yeah, when they get produced, I will have them up in my shop and I'm really excited to see them as stickers. And yeah, it's been a little while since I've done a new sticker sheet, so this was the perfect opportunity for me to do it, and I had a really fun time using this theme, and I think the colors are super fun. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed hearing about the process. I know that, again, I'm not a digital artist expert, but I hope that maybe it was helpful for you if you're maybe not primarily a digital artist and you just sort of want to dip your toe in and, just take it in maybe a different approach or just, try something new. And yeah, that is the finished result. Thank you to Clip Studio Paint for sponsoring, and thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.